What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and this is going to be a very angry rant because we gotta talk about the state of PlayStation, because it does feel like a lot of Sony fans, a lot of just gaming industry enthusiasts have started to realize the fact that this generation is borked. It's bad. It's kind of just going down into the history books to truly consider the fact that the PlayStation 5 is selling like crazy. It is exploding off store shelves. Even now, 4 years into the generation, the PlayStation 5 Pro seems to have at least been partially successful, but there is not a bunch of crazy good Sony first-party stuff. This is the worst that Sony first-party has ever been. Like, actually consider that. PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, PlayStation Portable, PlayStation Vita, every other generation that Sony has been putting out has more games, more passion, more experimentation, more good stories, whereas with the PS5, they're letting everybody else make good games, which is fine. I'm not saying every game sucks, but people are beginning to realize we're not going to get new first-party games until the PlayStation 6. Let's talk. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So, last night, I made a video talking about it, but a big leak was revealed that apparently they were working on a games-as-a-service God of War, and that got canned, and Sony Bend was working on like a live service shooter, and that sucks on its own, but people are beginning to kind of realize, do the math and realize, we're not seeing anything until PlayStation 6. So in 2020, Sony announced 12 live service games. We now know what all 12 of these are because almost all of them have been canceled. So that means that this is an entire generation where more than half of their big studios have been working on stuff for years, only for it to get scrapped, and now they're working on PlayStation 6 launch games. Okay, so the damage Jim Ryan has done to PlayStation by greenlighting these games is legendary. I've seen so many people talking about really putting this on the shoulders of Jim Ryan. There have been a bunch of public statements and private statements, leaks and press releases and stuff about the fact that Jim Ryan was very much the play it safe head of PlayStation. His whole idea is that when the PlayStation 4 was really exploding, when it was really just taking off, Jim Ryan was afraid to release bad games. He didn't want to release stuff that wouldn't just sell, but he wanted it to be this cohesive brand. Let's face it, the Xbox One completely tanked. I mean, the Xbox One was dead at launch, and so with it, Jim Ryan realized, okay, this is an opportunity for the PlayStation 4 to take off. Let's make games that we know are safe, good sequels, spin-offs, stuff like Infamous Second Son. Let's do Uncharted 4, Uncharted Lost Legacy. Let's play it safe with games that are good, that we know people are going to buy and celebrate and keep talking about. And that worked, but he went too far. He definitely went, okay, let's only play it safe. Let's only do what we know is going to be the safest bet possible. And when he did finally decide to step outside his comfort zone, it was to make a bunch of live service games. Now, even the most diehard Sony fans are starting to go, okay, this is ridiculous, because it shows one of the biggest problems in the industry right now that I think everybody is pissed about. Literally zero people are ever happy about this, is this weird obsession with taking teams that historically have been the best at single-player stuff and just forcing them to make a multiplayer project. We saw that with Rocksteady. They made the incredibly good Arkham Batman games, and they said, okay, now we have to make a live service Suicide Squad. We saw it with Arcane Austin. Oh, the Dishonored games are fantastic. Go make a games-as-a-service vampire hunting game in Redfall, which ended up closing the studio. For whatever reason, Jim Ryan thought that everything would be better with microtransactions and season passes, and now all these studios have nothing to show for it. Like, who actually sat in a boardroom and heard a pitch for a live service God of War and said, hell yes, make Blue Point do it? Of all people, Blue Point! Oh my god. God of War live service game sounds insane. The damage Jim Ryan did to the PlayStation 5 generation studios will be remembered for a lifetime. This push for live service has way too much, it seems. Oh my god, maybe half of them would have been okay, but a lot of these games, the weirdest thing is that none of these are even coming out. I saw this tweet here, and I feel like this is great because it really itemizes how much has been canned. And it's really weird to actually see this. So in 2020, when they announced the 12 live service games, I pushed back against it. A lot of people pushed back against it because the idea of all this live service is infinitely expensive. You're constantly having a massive dev team with no vacations, tons of crunch. You're constantly having to churn out new maps, new content, new characters, new microtransactions. And so because of it, not only is it ridiculously expensive, but it's going to just measurably soak up the teams around it. I mean, a lot of times, look at Bungie. Bungie was always having to hire. They were always having to fire. They were constantly trying to worry about the next season, the next DLC, the next big patch. So this 12 games they announced, 8 of them have been canceled. 8 of them have been canceled in just the last 3 years. Somehow, it's still easy to put their most profitable generation ever because, honestly, this is still just... The PlayStation 5 is still huge, even as these games keep getting canned, but here it's really weird to just see every game that's canceled. Blue Point's God of War game, canceled. Sony Ben's Shooter, canceled. Bungie's Payback, canceled. Firesprite's Twisted Metal Games as a Service, canceled. Firewalk was working on Concord, that's canceled, and the studio is now closed. Insomniac's Spider-Man The Great Web, now that was actually even leaked. We saw gameplay trailers that were fully voiced. It looked like that was ready to go. The Great Web was a multiversal, multiplayer Spider-Man game. They canned that, what seems like right before launch. The London Studios fantasy multiplayer game canceled. Naughty Dog The Last of Us Factions Online canceled in 2023. The only ones that have been a success, and even this is just barely measurable, is GTA 7 that worked well, Helldivers 2 that worked well, MLB The Show, and Destiny 2 The Final Shape. And even Destiny 2, there's talks about the fact that that game is completely imploding. Looking at a list like this, it's hard not to get frustrated because this stuff is not ancient history. We're not going to the ancient texts to find these historical legends of when PlayStation got great. PlayStation was incredibly awesome even 5 or 6 years ago. It is weird to think about the fact that the bigger Sony gets, the lazier they get. And I think a lot of people, Sony fans, Xbox people, I feel like there's this rivalry of, okay, Xbox owns a lot of studios. They're trying to put stuff everywhere. Even when there is a good Xbox game, I'll just buy it on PlayStation. But people are also going, okay, how is Sony going to keep up? How is Sony going to get motivated? How is Sony really ever going to have that fire under their asses to try to beat the competition when it feels like Sony doesn't care about the competition? Sony doesn't care because the systems keep selling. The third-party stuff keeps paying the bills. But I think it really kind of puts into perspective how much Sony has this razor-thin profit margin. They're constantly just trying to sell a game for a profit and get you enticed to buy the next PlayStation, the next limited edition controller. And I feel like these big gambles that they hoped would put them in a better spot have now just blown up in their faces one by one. Every live service game, every weird project, everything that was supposed to be the infinite moneymaker has now become a money pit. Putting a remake studio into a live service title, let alone God of War, is certifiably insane. Bloodborne remake is right there. The fact that they had Blue Point working on this right after this, the fact that they had them working on this directly after making the Demon's Souls remake, it's baffling. So many of these decisions are frustrating because it's not just that it lacks creativity. I feel like I'm just hitting this point where I am frustrated by the people signing the checks, by the executives that I truly feel like are not playing games. When I see stuff like this, people talking about the fact that Sony bend, they're not making Days Gone 2, I wish they'd make something like an Uncharted Golden Abyss remake or a Siphon Filter reboot. These are projects that are passionate, that fans still love, that are still exciting, but the people at the top don't understand it. Like, clearly, no offense to Herman Hulst and all the people at the top of Sony and stuff, but I feel like those guys do not understand how much people would tear their hair out for a completely new Uncharted game at this point. Uncharted 5 or a remake, a Siphon Filter sequel or a reboot. How much people just want good single-player games. Even if it has a multiplayer component, just make a good single-player game. Yeah, I know that's a lot easier said than done, but at this point, what happened to giving people cool experiences to play, to talk about, to share, to clip, to post on the internet? PlayStation, you gotta get back to your roots, man. I'm not sure what magic got lost, what fear got stoked into you boys, but remember when gaming was a lot more clean, when gaming was a lot more focused, when gaming was a lot more, I don't know, for the gamers. All right, I just wanted to do an angry rant, kind of get this out of my system, because it is frustrating to watch PlayStation just throw it all away for no reason. I mean, truly, I'm dead serious here. I don't get it. But tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.